You are playing too defensively, and it is absolutely killing your progress in online chess. In fact, one of the number one reasons I find players are stuck at 500, 1000, or even 1500 ELO is they are focusing too much on defending and not enough on attacking and pressuring the opponent. And in this video, I'm going to break down exactly why playing aggressive attacking chess is the key to improving and how I used that philosophy to reach 2000 plus ELO in the past year myself. All right, in this game, I opened 1d4, big 1d4 player myself. My opponent goes d5. And now on move 2, I play the most aggressive move possible. That is the Queen's Gambit with, of course, 2c4. Now, with this move right here, I'm pressuring d5, putting immediate pressure on the opponent's center. And if my opponent ever takes that pawn, I can always go e3 or even better, e4 to regain the pawn with my light squared bishop. So here, I'm being very aggressive, but it's controlled aggression. It's not reckless. I'm putting safe pressure on the opponent literally right from the first couple of moves in this game. Now, black here has a wide variety of ways to respond. He can defend the pawn with, say, c6 or e6, but instead my opponent in this game, he takes the pawn on the c4 square. Now here, this is called the Queen's Gambit accepted, and black's idea, he's trying to win the pawn on c4, and he's trying to make it hard for white to win back the pawn immediately. So white may be wasting some time trying to regain the pawn, but the benefit of this opening for white is white gets these very strong center pawns. White now has 2 center pawns versus the 1 center pawn of black, and that means white has a little bit better central control. And here, as usual, as I almost always do, I play the most aggressive move on the board. That is 3e4. So I launch my other center pawn forward 2 squares, and I seize control of the center. Now, look at this. I have 2 beautiful pawns on e4 and d4. I'm going to win back this pawn on the c4 square. From there, I can go, for example, knight f3 and short castles, or there are even some lines where white castles long in this position. So white's getting a beautiful center, very aggressive placement for his pieces, and overall, a fantastic game already on move 3. Now, black's going to have a wide variety of ways to respond in this line of the Queen's Gambit accepted. Black can go for moves like c5, b5, knight c6, e5, knight f6, and on and on and on. But in this game, black does go knight to c6, one of the more aggressive moves in response. So black here is already on move 3, pressuring my vulnerable pawn on d4. Now, normally when you open 1d4, that pawn is very well defended. However, here, because black took on c4, the queen's attack on d4 is now opened up, and the knight is also pressuring d4. Therefore, we have 1-2 attackers versus the 1 defender, and I do have to defend somehow. Here, I simply go knight to f3, a very solid move, defending d4 and developing. Keep in mind, my main idea here is to try and capture on c4, and then castle as quickly as possible, and then attack in the center. So knight f3, it defends, but also prepares castling, which is really part of my long-term plan here as white. Now, black, he goes knight f6, pressuring e4, and here already on move 5, there are a lot of ideas for white. We can go, for example, e5 or d5, trying to pressure these knights. However, I don't see a real reason to try and do it yet. Instead, I simply defend with the move knight to c3, developing, bolstering e4, and so on. Now here, black plays a very aggressive idea, bishop g4, and you've probably seen this kind of move in your own online games. It happens a lot in other openings as well, including, for example, the Roy Lopez, the Italian opening, and so on. And the idea is simple. White is getting the big pawn center on d4 and e4. Therefore, black is trying to pressure the center as soon as he can. So the bishop, it puts pressure on the knight on f3, and the knight defends the d4 pawn. So black here, his threat is simply taking on f3, and if I take back with either the g pawn or the queen, black can jump in with his knight and capture on d4, win a pawn, destroy my center, and get a huge initiative, and likely win the game from there. So already on move 5, I have to respond to my opponent's threat here. And this is why every time my opponent makes a move, I ask myself, what is the opponent's threat? What are they doing? And that's especially true when the opponent moves pieces onto either the 5th rank or even into your territory like this. So whenever the opponent moves a piece into your territory like this, bishop g4 crossing the middle of the board right here, you have to ask yourself, what is going on? What are they threatening? And of course here, knight takes d4 is the big threat. Fortunately, we can defend. There are a number of ways to do this. For example, bishop e3 is playable. The one problem with that is if black takes on f3, you sort of do have to capture with the g-pawn, and I'm not the biggest fan of this kind of position. It just feels kind of awkward to me. So instead of that, I play the more aggressive idea of d5, pushing back this knight, and already I'm pushing into enemy territory, gaining space, and trying to fight for the initiative. So again, in chess, it's so important. You have to apply pressure onto your opponent. You can't win games just by developing and castling and shuffling your pieces. Sooner or later, you have to apply pressure in a safe way against the opponent to force out mistakes and to try and force weaknesses and so on. Now here, black, he jumps in with the knight, knight d5, a good move. You don't want to go back to, say, b8. It's way too passive. And you don't want to go to, say, a5. That is very vulnerable to ideas like queen to a4 check, hitting the king and the knight. It's a good trick to keep in mind for your queen's gambit game. So knight e5 here makes perfect sense. Black jumping in, pressuring f3 with the knight. And of course, for now, f3 is supported by the g-pawn. There's no real need to worry about black taking on f3. For now, that is okay. So here, I play the move bishop to e3, just developing and giving black the chance to capture on f3 if he wants to, which I think would be good for me overall. Whether black takes with the knight like this, which should be fine, I drive back the bishop, or if he takes with the bishop, that should also be fine for me. I got a very, very strong center, two good bishops, and so on. And overall, I think I'm doing quite well in these kinds of scenarios. Now here, the best move for black is going to be either c6 or maybe a6, intending a fast b5. Either way, black's trying to kind of fight back and fight for the center, trying to chip away at my pawn center on d5. However, instead in the game, black plays a very passive move, and I'm sure a lot of you watching this right now play this kind of move in your own online games, even if you're rated 1,000 or 1,500. Most black players don't know how to really apply pressure properly. And here, black plays the move knight fd7. Now, what is black trying to do here? Well, black's trying to bolster his knight on e5. However, this move, it kind of blocks the scope of the queen. It blocks the scope of the bishop. It takes a developed piece and brings it back. It's not really obvious what it's doing here. And here I just played the move h3, pushing back the bishop. And from here, black's got a difficult choice. If you capture on f3 with the bishop, I take back and I win the bishop pair and get just a really, really strong pawn center. On the other hand, if you go back, I'm going to have ideas like g4 in the air later, which could be very strong for me. Now, in the game, black here, he takes on f3 like this. I don't mind at all. G takes f3. Now, there are a lot of people watching this probably wondering, wait a minute, Mike, what about the damaged pawn structure? Isn't that a bad thing for white? Isn't that kind of a problem? Well, the truth is, it depends. Here, yes, I do have those double pawns. However, in return for them, this f-pawn, this extra f-pawn, can sort of act as a battering ram. Now, f4 is possible, pushing back this knight. And if I do go f4, for example, if a5, then f4, something like this, I have, on the one hand, the one strong f-pawn advancing in enemy territory. I also have the other f-pawn back on f2, which defends my king side and defends this diagonal. So that wouldn't be a check if black's queen got to, say, h4. So the fact that I have two f-pawns here, this one is more defensive and this one is more offensive. I can play it more aggressively, and that means I have a really, really good position. Keep in mind, once that knight on e5 goes away, the pawn on c4 will also fall, so having the extra f-pawn here is actually really, really useful in case of the f4 idea. Now, black here, what should he be doing? I have this rule in chess. In my opinion, it's the improved version of CCTO. I call it attack or develop. Now, if you don't know, CCTO stands for checks, captures, threats, optimizations. A lot of online gurus love to use this rule to improve at chess, but in my opinion, attack or develop is a far superior version of that rule. So what does attack or develop mean? It basically means in most positions, if the opponent is not immediately attacking you, if there's no immediate threat, you have two main things you want to do. You want to either attack the opponent, or if there's no good way to attack, you want to develop. Now here, black, he simply doesn't have enough pieces out to really develop. Therefore, to attack. Therefore, development has to be his big priority. So what can he do to develop? Well, black here, he's got to find some way to castle. At some point, he's going to want to castle kingside. Castling long could be kind of dangerous. Therefore, to castle kingside, you have to get the bishop off the back rank. And to do that, you're going to have to go at some point e6 or g6, intending bishop e7 or g7. So black here, he plays the move e6, very logical. g6 also makes some sense here. Instead, e6 chosen in the game, a logical idea here. But again, as we talked about, you want to play aggressive whenever you can, whenever it makes sense. So here, I use that attack or develop rule, and I do find a good attacking idea. Here, f4 looks super, super attractive. The point being, I'm driving back this knight, and once the knight goes away, I take on c4, winning the pawn, while also developing a piece. So I'm combining attacking play with development, and it's just a really solid way to play. So using my attack or develop rule, I try to find ways to attack the opponent immediately. I find one using my f4 move. I play f4, driving back the knight. And here black, if he goes back to, say, g6, something like that, that's going to be just so insanely passive and not good for my opponent. Therefore, my opponent here, he decides it is time to jump in with the knight to d3. However, I'm actually quite ready for this. Black jumps in to d3. I take the knight with bishop takes, black takes back, and I take with the queen. So far in this game, my aggressive play has really paid off. I'm ready to castle queenside here if I want to. The rook can go to g1. I've got all of these strong pawns in the center here on d5, e4, and f4. And beyond that, I'm actually up a pawn. So despite having the double pawns here on the f-file, this extra f-pawn, again, acting as a battering ram, is so useful for my position. I'm up a pawn, I'm castling queenside, I'm castling first. Everything is really going my way in this game. Now black here, what can he do? Again, using my attack or develop rule, this is the easiest way to improve at chess, mastering this one rule. Black here, can he attack? Well, the only attacking idea might be taking on d5, but that looks super risky. Therefore, instead, black's got to develop. Here, he plays the move bishop b4, an active move, a developing move, transferring the bishop to b4, pinning that on c3 to the king on the e1 square, and so on. However, overall, it's not that dangerous, and here I can simply castle long and continue the attack. So again, my rule, attack or develop. Here, taking on e6 looks tempting. However, I decide there's no real need to rush into that. Rook g1 also looks tempting, but again, I decide I'm so far ahead in this game. If I just play solid here, I mean, still aggressive, still attacking play. I'm still not trying to defend only. But if I continue playing solid here and bringing out more pieces, I should be okay. So here, I simply castle long. Again, I want to castle realistically as soon as reasonably possible in most positions. Castling fast is generally a good idea, especially in these more open positions. Now, this one is not technically super open yet, but if these pawns start flying off the board, it could become very open very fast. Now, black here, he does take on d5. E takes d5. I don't mind at all. I take back with the knight, and knight takes d5. And now look at this. My knight jumping into d5, pressuring c7, pressuring the bishop. And this is why I love aggressive attacking play and not playing too defensively. You can put so much pressure on the opponent and force them to respond to your ideas instead of the other way around. So, black here, the bishop, it's hanging, it's under attack. He's got to do something about it, and it's not easy to find a good square for the bishop. If you go to, say, d6, e5, a very aggressive move is coming. If you go back to, say, a5, the bishop's away from the defense of the king's side, and moves like rook g1 could be very, very strong. Instead, in the game, black goes bishop to f8. Now, the benefit of this move right here, black is defending everything. If I go rook g1, g7 is supported, but overall, it's very passive. And look, we're 14 moves into the game. Black has not castled, and he's literally only got one piece off the back rank. It's just not going his way in this game. So here, I've got a lot of options. I can go rook g1. I can go e5, attacking. I can go, any number of ideas here. Instead, I again decide, you know what? We're way ahead in this game. Let's just play a consolidating move and play the move king b1. Just sliding over. Black has no threats. Sooner or later, the king might want to go off that diagonal, off this diagonal, off the open c file, and so on. Therefore, king b1, a simple waiting move before I really go for the attack all out, kind of makes some sense. Now, black here, c6, driving back the knight. My first thing I check, is there any aggressive move for the knight? Can I jump forward into enemy territory? And it turns out all these squares are defended, therefore I really can't do that. So, knight c3 is really the only move that makes a lot of sense here for white. Sorry, computer kind of busting around. Live take here. Now, black, again, using my attack or develop rule. Can black attack? Not really. So he's got to develop. So how should he be developing his pieces? Well, again, that dark squared bishop is the key problem piece in this line for him. He's got to bring that piece off the back rank so he can castle quickly, and black does it in the game with the move bishop c5. Now, this is a key moment in this game. Black here is offering the trade of bishops, and whenever you have these key moments where you know there's tactics flying, Maybe there are pawns colliding in the center or on the king side like this. Maybe there's bishops colliding. Maybe there's some sort of tactical shot you see and you're trying to find a way to kind of force it through. Maybe you see ideas like here, if black castles, you can just take on d7, winning the game on the spot. Whenever you have these kinds of positions, you simply have to slow down and really consider every possible move that you could play here, especially the aggressive attacking ones. And this is where CCTO, the checks, captures, threats optimization system, does come in handy a little bit. I'm still not the biggest fan of it. I prefer attack or develop. So here, my thought process is, can I attack? If yes, consider those moves. If not, continue developing. So here, attacking might be taking on c5. It might be going queen c5, pressuring the bishop. It might be knight to a5, attacking the bishop. It might be rook g1, ignoring the tension and simply developing. There are a lot of ideas here. And actually, in this position, I don't want to take on c5 yet. In my opinion, if I take on c5, black's knight is going to jump out to c5 like this. And there's the queen trade potentially. And overall, I feel like the steam is sort of running out of my attack. Bobby Fischer, one of the greatest players of all time, has a rule. And that rule is basically you don't want to trade pieces in a way that helps your opponent develop. So here, if I trade on c5, I'm sort of just helping my opponent develop faster. His knight comes out and so on. So what I do here is I simply ignore all this tension. I completely ignore it for the time being. And instead, I continue to attack this time with the very simple move rook hg1. So I like this move. I'm just maintaining all the tension. I'm bringing out another piece to attack g7. And black has a very difficult choice. Do you castle into the ensuing attack? Do you trade on e3, at which point I can take back with the queen? It's not so easy to find an idea for black. Now black here, he could trade on e3, but again, after bishop takes, either f takes or queen takes are both pretty good for white. And black's still going to be in a lot of trouble. And I still have this ultra aggressive attacking setup. And black's still getting punished for playing too defensively in this game, like all the online gurus tell you to do. So instead here, black, he plays the move g6. Again, a defensive move. And he does sort of have to find some way to deal with the threat of rook takes g7. So I don't blame him for this move. But again, we're seeing why playing too defensively here in this game can really get you punished, especially against stronger players. Now here, as white, what should I be doing? There are a lot of ideas. And again, this is still a very key moment. It's very tactical. You really want to spend a lot of time trying to understand what's happening here. So here, the computer loves the idea of e5 and then knight to e4, trying to jump in to say d6 or f6 with the knight. Now, that is one idea, but it looks a little bit vague. I don't quite see what I'm accomplishing with that. And I wanted more of a concrete solution here to put immediate pressure on the opponent in a way that I just knew was good. And I knew there's no way of it backfiring. There's no way of it kind of not working out in my favor. So the solution I find here, and I quite like it here, even though the computer thinks it's a little bit weaker, is simply taking on c5. So I take on c5, and I know for a fact the only decent move that black can do here is taking back on c5. It can't even castle right now. So that is the only idea. So black takes back. And then the move I had planned, and the move I play here, is queen c4. Now, this is as far as I got in my calculations. When I played taking on c5 here, I saw I can take, black takes, and then I saw queen to c4, and it just looked really good for me. I'm pressuring c5. I'm pressuring the queen on d8 with the rook. I'm pressuring f7 in certain lines. These pawns can still go up if they need to. And overall, it just seemed like a really safe way to apply a huge amount of pressure on the opponent. And I didn't see an easy way for black to respond. So here, I simply take on c5. Bishop takes, knight takes, and then queen takes. So in your own online games, I really want you to think about doing things like this. These short 1 to 2 move combinations that apply pressure onto the opponent quickly in a safe way where you're not overextending, but you do have these concrete threats. And even if the opponent finds the best defensive setup, you're still getting good positions. However, another benefit of this is, number one, the opponent's going to have to spend a lot of time on the clock trying to figure out how to defend. And if they're burning through 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes in a blitz or rapid game, that is a huge benefit for you. So you can really force them to burn a lot of time on the clock. But beyond that, the opponent is always more likely to make a mistake when they're under pressure than when they're not. Like, this is where your opponent makes mistakes. And when they make mistakes, you can always just punish them for them and win the game on the spot. So black here is under a tremendous amount of pressure. What's he going to do? Well, he goes queen to e7. Now, if you like puzzles, pause the video and try to figure out how I further increased the pressure here. Everything seems to be on a pretty good square. My rooks on g1 and e on d1 are on pretty good squares. My knight on c3, decent square. My queen, also pretty decent, pressuring c5, pressuring f7, and so on. I've got a lot of pressure here, but there's no obvious breakthrough, at least according to the untrained eye. Try to figure out what I did right here to really maximally attack the opponent and put just maximum pressure on the opponent the way I am trying to show you how to do right here. So here, I play the move f5, and I love this move. I love it. This is just, I mean, the threat is so clear. I want to go f6, and if the opponent takes on f6, I take the knight, as the queen is being overloaded by the pawn. That is the beauty of this move. Beyond that, I'm also threatening in certain lines, simply taking on g6. And finally, of course, if black takes on f5 himself, he's opening up the g file, and his king will have nowhere to castle, and his king's going to be a sitting duck. So it's sort of one of those, like, D word if you do, D word if you don't scenarios where black, he's punished for taking on f5, but he's also punished for not taking on f5. And again, this is where black is going to be like so vulnerable to mistakes. It's things like this right here. So black, what should he be doing? Honestly, it's not easy to find the defense. The best move here is knight d7. And the reason it works is black is defending, number one, the knight, and number two, he's guarding f6. That way, if white goes f6, black can take back with the knight, and black is doing okay. But overall, this move is also very passive, and white is still getting a very aggressive setup. I might want to go, for example, rook e1, or f4, e5, e6, something like that. I've got so many different ideas here that I can use to attack. Queen d4 also looks good, attacking h8. And if black castles long, I'm attacking a7 and so on. So like this, for example, queen d4, castles, queen takes. So I've got a lot of ideas here. I'm not all in on the idea of f6. Even if black finds the best defensive move, knight d7, I'm still doing pretty good. However, here black, he makes a mistake. He blunders and he plays the move a5. And this move here, it's just dubious, if not a huge blunder. It ignores my threat of f6. And here, what do? I just play the aggressive idea I've had all game. f6. And look at this. This is just total destruction on the chessboard. Black, if he takes the pawn, I'm going to go queen takes c5, winning the knight and therefore the game. Instead, in the game, black goes queen to e5. Now, the idea behind this, he's trying to get out of the way of the attack of the pawn, which is good, and he's defending the knight, which is also good. But the problem is, you know that extra f pawn I had the entire game? f4, bada boom. We launched the f pawn up, and look at this. How is black going to defend the knight on the c5 square? It's really not easy. I mean, if the queen goes back here, I take it. If the queen goes here, I take it. If the queen goes here, technically black is still defending, at least for right now. But even there are so many problems. I can go e5 or f5, cutting off the queen on this rank. Or I can even go rook g5 here, simply attacking the queen and the knight. That's even better. And black, again, is still losing the piece. And it shows you the benefit of having all your pieces on aggressive squares. I mean, the rook on g1, even though g6 blocked the rook, just the fact that I have it on this open file here means sooner or later there might be some sort of tactic that exploits the placement of the queen or whatever else. It just shows the benefit of always having your pieces on the most active squares possible. But instead of all this, my opponent in this position plays the move b5. Now, this is a good time for a puzzle. If you like puzzles, pause the video and try to figure out why black here played this move b5. What's the idea, and how can I punish this as white? Now here, as we all know, this is a very tactical position if I've ever seen one. Both queens are under attack. The knight's under attack. Everything is like hanging and vulnerable here. So this is where you do want to use either attack or develop or the CCTO framework, whatever floats your boat. I like attack or develop personally. So here, what are my attacking ideas? Well, I can take the queen. That has to be considered. I can take the knight. That has to be considered. I can go knight takes b5. That has to be considered. All of these aggressive ideas. And in the end, I calculated all out and I saw knight takes b5 has to be the simplest, easiest, most obvious way to win the game here. The point is, I take on b5, and if black takes back, I take back with the queen, hit the king with check, and I still win the queen. Therefore, black here, I mean, it's not easy to find the right defense. Do you go sideways and give up the knight? Like, what do you do here as black? Black is just in a pickle. In the end, he goes back with the queen. Queen takes f6. It might actually be one of these stronger ideas here. That just shows you how vulnerable black is here in this game. Now here, what do? I continue the attack. I continue the pressure. Now, I can trade on c5, but the problem with that, and this is why you always want to do a blunder check, number one, and number two, why you never want to get cocky in chess. You want to be in that flow state. You want to be thinking about finding as many ideas as you can on every single move. Here, if I take on c5, black takes the knight on b5, and black is effectively winning the game on the spot. So instead, I jump in with the knight to d6 like this, hit the king on the e8 square with check, and then my plan is to capture on c5 next. And of course, the knight, in case you're wondering, is still supported by the rook. Therefore, I'm still doing excellent. Now here, the king's got to go over, king f8. I take on c5, and now when I personally, as a 2000 ELO player, see this kind of position, my first thought process is, oh boy, we have the discovered attack. As soon as the knight moves, black's king's under check. So I got to find some way to maximally exploit this relationship. I'm looking at ideas like knight to c8, ideas like knight to f5, which guards g7, hits the king, guards these squares of the knight. You know, black's king might go back to, say, e8, but overall it looks really, really bad for black in so many different ways. So that's the first thing I think about. How can I make this threat, the x-ray attack, the discovered check, as strong and as potent as humanly possible? Now black here plays the move rook b8, and just look at this move. Black, the audacity. He's down a piece, but he's threatening checkmate on b2. And this is just a crazy, crazy idea. And it shows you why in chess you can never get too cocky, and why even if you're down, playing aggressive attacking chess is almost always the right way to go. Because here, if I get lazy, if I play a move like, I don't know, rook to e1 or something, I'm getting mated on the spot on b2. That's literally checkmate. So this shows you why even when you're behind, even when you're playing an aggressive player and you're behind material, keep playing till the bitter end and keep creating concrete threats the opponent has to respond to, because that is how you win games, especially at the amateur level, is creating concrete threats against the opponent. And sooner or later, the opponent makes a mistake, a blunder under pressure, and then boom, you have to punish them immediately. So here, I spot the threat. I will not allow myself to be mated here. I play the move e5. I block the attack. The queen, it cannot take on b2. So far, so good. All right, black. He takes on f4. That is the drawback of my move. I'm hanging the pawn on the f4 square. But to me, it's worth it because after the queen takes, I have so many ways to continue, so many ways to further increase the pressure on black. Now here, I'm looking, and I want to play a move like knight to f5 check. And the reason I want to play it is, if black were to slide over with the king to, say, e8, I go queen to e7 checkmate. However, the one thing I could not figure out is if black slides over to g8, I don't really have an easy way to checkmate him. Like if I go in here, black goes back, and it's literally repeating the prior position. If I go to, say, h6, the king goes forward, and black still looks to be kind of okay. So I didn't quite see a way to exploit this relationship. So this shows why in chess you want to be aggressive, but you still have to blunder check, and you still have to calculate and check your ideas. And if there's not a good idea, if there's no easy way to exploit the opponent, you have to keep looking. So using my attack or develop rule, I want to attack. I want to play knight c8 or knight e8 or knight f5 check. But after looking at it, it doesn't seem like there's an easy way to really break through. So instead, I play a developing move, which tries to improve the placement of one of my pieces. And here, rook h to f1 is actually developing and attacking. The rook on g1, not doing a whole lot. But when it slides over to f1, it lines up with the queen. It lines up with f7. And this is looking really, really bad for black. So a really good way to combine development plus attacking and aggressive play. So black, where does he go? Queen b4. The queen slides over. He's trying to offer the queen trade. Now, should I go for the queen trade, or should I try to find some way to finish off the opponent and win the game. Now, unfortunately, I could not find a forced mate. I could not find a way to win on the spot. If I go to like here or here with check, black actually takes on c5. And beyond that, very importantly, black here, again, the audacity is threatening checkmate. Threatening checkmate. If I go, you know, a weak move, I don't know, taking on c6, I'm getting mated. And again, I can't emphasize this enough. This shows why playing aggressive is so important in chess, because when you play aggressive, that is when the opponent makes the most mistakes. It's when they ignore your threats, and you can win so many games just by making threats and the opponent not seeing them, and then you punish them for it. Now here, I see the threat. I see queen takes b2 is being threatened. What do? I take on f7 like this. Rook takes f7. I hit with check. The check forces the king over. He goes to g8. And then here, I'm up an entire piece, that being the knight. I got better pieces. I decide, you know what? Let's just trade off the queens. Queen takes, a takes, and I've got a very easy win here. And now, in the endgame, if you don't know, the number one rule in endgames is pass pawns must be pushed. You have to make pass pawns, and you have to force them down your opponent's throat as quickly, as forcefully, as aggressively as possible. So with that in mind, with that rule here, what should I be doing? It's very simple. I should be playing the move here, e6. Just pushing the pawn, just going for it. And my threat is so simple. e7, and then e8, or perhaps e7, rook f8, or e7, rook f1, rook f8, and so on. Basically finding some way to just force that pawn down his throat. All right, b3 is the move I take. Black is getting desperate. He goes h6, trying to give his king some loft on h7, but I'm ignoring it. e7 is the move. I push anyway. Pass pawns must be pushed. All right, black, rook to h7, trying to defend. And here, all I want to do is find a simple way to simplify to a winning position. And here, the easiest way to do that is taking on h7. The king has to take, and then e8, promoting to a queen like this. And from there, I mean, it's pretty much me cleaning up. I cut the king off on the third file here and keep watching for a very clever trick that I play in a few moves here. I push the pawn all the way. Like attacks my rook. I go back to c1. And then what you do is you add the disrespect by promoting to a rook and not a queen. That's just how it's done. From here, you just got to find a simple way to checkmate the opponent. I like the idea of just getting the kings sliding over and over and over and over like this. And if the opponent tries to maybe like attack your rook like that, all you do, you swing away to the other side of the board, then slide over and slide over to win the game. So really, the key lesson in this game, especially when it comes to like this position right here, you've got to play aggressive. The opponent, they're not castled. Everything's under attack. And you got to find some way to increase the pressure and overload those pieces. And I love the idea here of f6, f5, then f6. It's such a beautiful idea, trying to overload the queen. And it really does show why, like when you play these aggressive moves, your opponent might make a mistake. And if they make a mistake like a5, you can punish them with a move like f6, overloading the queen and just forcing everything down the opponent's throat and just really winning a beautiful game. And, you know, what can the opponent do? They go forward, you play aggressive and attack it again. They go b5. You use my attack or develop mental model, and you say, oh, attack, take on b5, and you go from there, just winning, setting up threats. And again, you know, even from move 2 in this game, playing the queen's gambit instead of more passive openings, I just love playing aggressive chess like this, and I really do feel like it's the best way to improve as a player. When you play aggressive, it forces you to think harder, to think smarter, to find more accurate, precise moves. If you play passive moves like, I don't know, knight f3, then b3, then bishop b2, then e3, whatever else, you're playing so safe, it doesn't challenge you as much. It doesn't force you to find the best possible moves. When you play more aggressive, like c4 and then e4 and so on, it just forces you to really play at your peak potential. And when you're doing that, that's when you really improve. So anyways, I hope you got some value out of this video. I hope I showed you why playing more aggressively is, first of all, way more fun. But second of all, just a better strategy for long-term chess improvement and gaining ELO points very, very fast. I mean, playing defensively can work for a little while. You can get some results playing that way, as the online gurus would have you think. But overall, playing aggressively forces you to play so much more accurately, so much more precisely, and it forces you to learn and improve so much faster. I just think it's a better overall way to play, and it is so much better, obviously, for forcing out mistakes and blunders from the opponent, and it's just a more fun way to play in general, too. So, if you enjoyed this video, please consider smashing the YouTube like button. Comment down below what you thought of the game. I will try to reply to comments here. I don't normally do that, but I will try to get in and reply to every single comment on this video. So please leave a comment. I'll get back to you. And by the way, if you want to learn directly from me and learn how I went from 1,100 to over 2,000 ELO in 7 months in this past year, I can show you how I did it. I can show you my personal secrets for getting screaming fast progress in online chess. All you got to do, go to school.com/chessmindset. That is the link up there. Also, the link's down below in the description and the pinned comment of this video. I have one student in there. I literally had one 30-minute call with him, and in the past 3 weeks, he's up almost 300 ELO. Absolute insanity. He's going to win my 30-day chess challenge, and I'm probably going to have a 10-game online blitz match versus him coming up in the very near future. Maybe I'll even do a video on that one-on-one blitz match. We'll see. But yeah, hope you enjoyed this. And as always, I wish you the best of luck in your chess improvement journey in 2025 and beyond. And I'll see you in the next video.